Chapter 171. Rose with Thorns. She kept everything that was weak about her hidden under the sharpness of the blade, never revealing it to anyone else. All the long-term suppression, suffering, grievances, and bitterness, were all released in a single breath today. Finally, Lu Ruyu's eyes started to slowly tear up. Before long, tears fell as she smiled. "Thank you for accompanying me for such a long time. You should go back first, let me be alone for a while." Everyone needs to unload their worries, especially those who appear to be strong, able women. They feel lonely in their hearts. If worries were hidden in their hearts for a long time, they would become a problem. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and slowly got up. The original desires in his heart had long been cast aside to an unknown place. Since his mission was completed, there was no need to stay here anymore. He took out a set of dry clothes from the universe ring and placed it by the side of the hot spring. Then he leapt out and headed out of the cave. Xiao Chen knew that the next time he met Lu Ruyu after he walked out of the cave, she would have turned back into that rose with thorns. She would only take on the appearance of a sharp blade. The delicate girl in her would not be revealed again. Watching Xiao Chen's back as he left, Lu Ruyu felt slightly disappointed in her heart. After some time, she smiled bitterly and shook her head before sinking her entire body into the water. The stream swirled around the hot spring, causing one to feel warm. However, Lu Ruyu's heart slowly calmed down. Some things were impossible, there was no need to think about them. The next day, early in the morning, Xiao Chen held the name card in his hand and studied it carefully. Finally, he decided to make a trip to Jade Maiden Peak. Although that medicinal spring could accelerate the healing process, it would not be as effective at getting rid of the scars as the medicinal pill he was going to refine. Thus, he wrote down all the herbs he needed and then he went to look for Lu Sufeng. When Lu Sufeng heard that Xiao Chen wanted him to bring Xiao Chen to Jade Maiden Peak, he quickly shook his head and said, "No way. Look at my face, it is swollen like a pig's head. How can I be unashamed to go out like this? If Miss Xinyan saw me like this, I would feel like dying." Xiao Chen found it funny. He did not expect Lu Sufeng to reject him like this. He compromised and said, "In that case, can you at least send me to the foot of Jade Maiden Peak?" Lu Sufeng chuckled, "Let me say this first, I will not go up the mountain. Wait for a while, let me put on a cloak." After a while, Lu Sufeng appeared wearing a black cloak. His face was completely hidden in the shadow of the hood. His face could not be seen clearly, and it seemed a little strange. "Haha, that's more like it. Lead the way." Xiao Chen smiled. Lu Sufeng loved going to Jade Maiden Peak anytime he could. Thus, he was very familiar with the way there. Soon, he led Xiao Chen to the foot of Jade Maiden Peak. Jade Maiden Peak towered over the land, the top of the peak was shrouded in mist. The peak was completely covered in fresh greenery. There was a lingering delicate fragrance around Jade Maiden Peak, and it could be smelled from a distance. Those who smelled it would feel carefree and relaxed. The thing that caused Xiao Chen to feel strange was that there were many disciples of other peaks at the foot of the peak. They were all standing at the foot of the mountain in an elegant and graceful manner, arranged in small groups and chatting with each other. "The Jade Maiden Peak disciples are coming down," someone shouted suddenly. The crowd instantly moved as they all rushed forward like a swarm of bees. They ignored all decorum of grace as they pushed and squeezed their way forward. Each of them only wished to be the first to reach the Jade Maiden Peak disciples. "Junior Sister Xiao, are you doing the sect missions? I'll accompany you. I recently advanced to superior grade Martial Grand Master. I can guarantee your safety." TL note. Seriously, the author needs to find better names. Just like before, this Xiao Xiao is different from the Xiao Xiao of Xiao Chen. Her Xiao is also different from all the ones that appeared before. "Junior Sister Xiao, I just obtained an Earth-ranked spirit weapon the day before, my strength is now boosted. Let me accompany you." "Junior Sister Xiao, let me accompany you. I have a profound ranked battle armor. I'll give it to you so that you will certainly be worry-free." A girl dressed in white was being surrounded by the group of people, akin to the moon being surrounded by stars. The heavenly saber pavilion inner disciples surrounding her all kept fawning over her, expressing their wish to do the sect missions with her. The girl with the surname Xiao had an impatient look spreading across her face. She ignored the people around her, but eventually she got irritated and scolded everyone around her. Only after that, did everyone stop following her. Xiao Chen felt it was interesting. Thus, he asked, "What's going on? What is the group of people surrounding that girl trying to do?" Lu Sufeng answered, "In most of the other peaks in Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the situation is that there are way more males than females. If those disciples want to search for a girl, they can only turn their attention toward Jade Maiden Peak. However, males are not allowed on Jade Maiden Peak. So, they can only wait below, at the foot of the mountain." So this was what was going on. In that case, how did Lu Sufeng go up? Xiao Chen could not help but think suspiciously. Could it be that Lu Sufeng has something special about him? Lu Sufeng smiled proudly. "Who do they think am I? How can those people even dream of comparing themselves to me? It is easy for me to get into Jade Maiden Peak. Furthermore, I'm extremely welcome there. It is not something these people can achieve." As they spoke, the Jade Maiden Peak disciple with the surname Xiao walked over to the two of them. Lu Sufeng was clearly nervous. He quickly stopped speaking and deeply lowered his head. In the instant she brushed past them, the girl suddenly stopped. She turned around and studied Lu Sufeng carefully. After a while, she revealed a strange look on her face. "Lu Sufeng, why are you dressed like that? Didn't you take a sick leave? Why do you seem so healthy and active now? I was about to go looking for you." Lu Sufeng was recognized. He smiled helplessly and said, "Junior sister Xiao, I am just here to accompany a friend. I am truly injured, I'm not lying." Junior sister Xiao snorted and said, "I don't believe you. Come back with me quickly. In the days you were gone, birds kept coming to the herb field I'm responsible for and pecked at the herbs. I was thoroughly scolded by my master. Come back with me quickly and chase away those birds. Otherwise, I'll tell master that you were lying and prohibit you from coming up the peak. Let's see how you chase after senior sister Chu after that." Xiao Chen found it funny. So Lu Sufeng worked as a scarecrow on Jade Maiden Peak. Yet, he still was so proud that he could go up to Jade Mountain Peak. When the surrounding people heard that junior sister Xiao needed someone to chase the birds away, they all surrounded her once again. They all shouted, "Since he is not willing, let me help you." Junior sister Xiao snorted, "Who asked you to go? I'm very irritated now, so go away and stop bothering me." Xiao Chen was astonished. He did not expect that an unpopular job like chasing birds would have so many people fighting for it. Based on this, Lu Sufeng did indeed have the right to be proud. Lu Sufeng was forced into a helpless situation. She had figured out his weak spot. He could only follow junior sister Xiao and head for Jade Maiden Peak. Xiao Chen simply followed quietly behind them. Who is he? Doesn't he know that Jade Maiden Peak does not allow outsiders in? Junior sister Xiao said unhappily when she saw Xiao Chen following them. Lu Sufeng quickly explained, he has the name card that ancestral martial ant gave him. He was invited. You are Yi Chen. Junior sister Xiao's eyes brightened as she cried out in joy. After a while, she pouted, he does not seem very handsome. How did he chase away Song Ke? This girl was really direct. Xiao Chen smiled but did not reply. As the three of them moved forward, Xiao Chen got to know how Lu Sufeng got the bird chasing job. Jade Maiden Peak had extremely vast herb fields. There were many birds on the mountain eyeing these fields. Occasionally, they would swoop down and peck at some of the herbs. Furthermore, these birds were not ordinary birds. After staying in the spiritual energy-rich Jade Maiden Peak, the intelligence of these birds was much higher. The moment there was a chance, they would take advantage of it. Any herb in the peak's herb field would be worth thousands of gold taels. If an aged herb was eaten by birds, it would be even more unfortunate. Thus, the higher-ups of Jade Maiden Peak had a headache due to these birds. Sometimes, when some spiritual herbs matured, there would even be high-ranking flying spirit beasts. Thus, every herb field had their own person to guard them. For a period of time, Jade Maiden Peak was short-handed, thus, they issued sect missions. Lu Sufeng was lucky enough to get one of these missions. Lu Sufeng was very good at chasing these birds away. The fields that he watched over never had any birds pecking at the herbs. So, when the mission ended, Jade Maiden Peak's Peak Master even offered him a position protecting the fields, professional scarecrow. Xiao Chen also found out the name of the girl with the surname Xiao. It was Yuhuan. She was 14 years old this year. She kept pestering Xiao Chen along the way, asking some strange questions. They gave him a headache. Soon, they arrived at the first checkpoint. Xiao Chen showed the name card that ancestral martial ant gave him, and the people at the checkpoint did not stop him. They even sent someone to guide Xiao Chen. Seeing Xiao Chen walk straight up into Jade Maiden Peak, the crowd below was incredibly astonished. There were even some who tried their luck, thinking they could go up Jade Maiden Peak. However, even before they reached the checkpoint, they were mercilessly thrown out by someone. They fell miserably and rolled down the mountainside, humiliated. "We can't go up. How did that fellow enter?" someone exclaimed. Someone, who saw Xiao Chen yesterday, mocked him. "He is someone with ancestral martial ant Shen's name card. If you have it, then you can go up as well. So he is Yi Chen. He is simply an inferior grade martial grand master. How did he chase away Song Ke? He used the secret treasure of Qingyan Peak. That's how he chased Song Ke away. Furthermore, the old peak master of Qingyan Peak made a move. Based on his strength, how could he be a match for Bian Peak's peak master? On the peak, Xiao Chen could not hear all these things being said about him. When they arrived at the herb field, he parted ways with Lu Sufeng and Xiao Yuhuan. Herb fields after herb fields appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. It was a big eye-opener. Lu Sufeng's words were indeed true. As he walked, he literally saw tens of thousands of herbs. Aside from a few spiritual herbs which required special environments, all the herbs in Tianwu continent could easily be found here. After a while, Xiao Chen was led to a place above sheer cliffs and precipitous rocks. There was a wooden pavilion standing tall, as though it were floating in the air. "Senior Brother Yi, please wait here for a while. Let me report to Ancestral Martial Ant first." Xiao Chen nodded. Not long after, the girl who led Xiao Chen here came out and brought Xiao Chen into the great hall of the pavilion. He saw the fairy-like woman from yesterday in the great hall. She was seated on a wooden chair with a smile on her face. When Xiao Chen saw this woman again, he could not believe that this person was already more than 200 years old. However, Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless this time. He greeted her respectfully. "Yi Chen greets Ancestral Martial Ant. I offended you yesterday. I hope Ancestral Martial Ant does not take it to heart." The woman smiled and took out a bottle of medicinal pills which she then handed to Xiao Chen. She said, "It does not matter. I was not expecting you to arrive today. I have a question for you. Did you refine this pill yourself?" Xiao Chen received it and took a look. It was the blood replenishing pill he had refined. He started thinking. Back then, when Nangong Yan saw the pills I refined, he was extremely amazed as well. Did the medicinal pills that I made reveal some of my secrets? However, this was not the time to think about this problem. Right now, he should be thinking of how to answer this question. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Chen decided to answer with the truth. In reply to Ancestral Martial Ant, this medicinal pill was indeed refined by myself. Is there something wrong? A strange look flashed deep within the eyes of this fairy-like woman. She smiled. "There is nothing wrong. I would like to invite you to help me refine a medicinal pill. Will you assist me with this?" At the foot of Qingyan Peak of Lingyun mountain range, Leng Liasu stood there with a complicated expression on her face. After hesitating for a while, she finally made up her mind. She then turned into a pretty red figure that dashed into the peak. After a while, she arrived at Lu Ruyu's courtyard, which was in the middle of the peak. She took out a bottle of medicinal pills and knocked violently before simply walking into her courtyard. "Young pavilion master, why are you here?" Xiao Meng came out of Lu Ruyu's room. When she saw Leng Liasu, she seemed shocked. Leng Liasu said indifferently, "Where is Lu Ruyu? Is she in the room?" Xiao Meng was very aware of the grudge between Lu Ruyu and Leng Liasu. Thus, she did not like Leng Liasu very much. She said in a soft voice, "Elder sister Ruyu just fell asleep. It is best not to disturb her now. She is asleep. It's better this way." Leng Liasu took out the bottle of pills and handed it to Xiao Meng. "Although I do not know the name of this pill, it can treat external and internal injuries. It is pretty effective for both." Xiao Meng took it suspiciously. She opened the bottle and took out a pill. Doubt could be seen in her eyes as she said, "Why is it exactly the same as one of Brother Yi Chen's pills?" When Leng Liasu, who had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard, heard this, she turned around excitedly and said to Xiao Meng, "Have you seen this pill before? Who gave it to you?" Xiao Meng nodded and took out a bottle of pills as well. She said, "This contains the pills that Brother Yi Chen gave to Xiao Yang in the past. It is exactly the same as your bottle." Yi Chen. It was indeed him. It was like thunder crackled in Lu Liasu's mind. She stood there stunned. Why did I not think of Yi Chen? Could he have been the one who accompanied me the whole night? Leng Liasu recovered her wits and said, "Where is he? Where did he go? Is he still in Qingyan Peak? I have to find him and clarify this." Leng Liasu felt a sudden urge to look for Xiao Chen. The truth was too hard to swallow. The person she had been searching for was actually the lascivious bastard. Yi Chen went to Jade Maiden Peak with Su Feng early in the morning. Within Jade Maiden Peak, Xiao Chen thought he had misheard. The ancestral martial ant actually wanted his help in refining a medicinal pill. Although he could not sense how strong she was, he guessed that she was at least a martial monarch. With such strength and frequent stays at Jade Maiden Peak, how could her refining abilities be so poor? Ancestral martial ant, are you joking? I'm just a young man without any capabilities. How could I be of any help to ancestral martial ant in refining pills? My name is Shen Manjin. You can address me as Senior Shen. Ancestral martial ant makes me sound very old. I have never really liked the sound of it. Shen Manjin smiled as she said. I can feel your spiritual core and hence know your level of alchemy. For the pill I want to refine, there isn't an issue with the rank but rather with the refinement method. Here is the recipe, take a look first. Xiao Chen suddenly felt afraid. His spiritual core had been seen through in an instant. However, he had not felt anything at all. Exactly how strong was this person? Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill. Xiao Chen took the recipe and glanced at it. This glance caused his mind to become chaotic. He then continued reading carefully without changing his facial expressions. After he read it, Xiao Chen understood what Shen Manjin meant. It turns out that the refinement method for this medicinal pill was exactly the same as the method found in the Compendium of Cultivation. It was possible that Shen Manjin was not able to figure it out by herself. After she saw Xiao Chen's blood replenishing pill, she could immediately sense the refining methods of this blood replenishing pill. They were very different from the mainstream methods used today. The refining method needed for this Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill is the ancient refining method. This is something I am not capable of doing. Your blood replenishing pill should have been refined by the ancient refining methods. As long as you know the method, there is no need to fear that you are not able to refine this Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill, Shen Manjin said gently. Xiao Chen thoughts raced, and he remembered the attitude of Nangong Yan from before. He felt that this was something he could not admit to. After all, one may know a person for a long time without knowing his true nature. He had only seen Shen Manjin once or twice. If he admitted to it, who knew what kind of consequences there would be? With his current strength, if something really did happen, he would not be able to resist Shen Manjin's might. After Xiao Chen made up his mind, He said sullenly, Senior Shen, my alchemy skills were passed down to me by a mysterious alchemist. I am not really able to understand the refinement methods of this immortal cloud life extending pill. Disappointment appeared in Shen Manjin's eyes. She said, I need to refine this pill to save the life of a friend. If you are able to refine it, I can make you advance to Martial Saint within a month. So, it was not for her own use. Xiao Chen felt slightly surprised. However, looking at Shen Manjin's life force, it felt as if she could still live for a long time. There should be no problem in living for another 100 years, unlike a person who was heavily lethargic. Xiao Chen was not interested in raising his cultivation to Martial Saint within a month. He knew that there were medicinal pills that would allow one's cultivation to be raised significantly, or that a person could pass on their cultivation to someone else, hence raising one's cultivation. Xiao Chen did not know which method she would use. However, regardless of the method, they all had the same problem. The cultivation was not his own. If he could not completely refine all of it, it might turn into a barrier for him in the future. Shen Manjin saw that Xiao Chen did not seem very interested in her suggestion. She followed up by saying, if you are worried about not being able to completely refine all of it, you can opt to choose an item of equivalent value. Be it a spirit stone, secret treasure, martial technique, medicinal pill, spirit weapon, or battle armor, they are all fine. Xiao Chen hurriedly said, Senior Shen misunderstands me. I am truly unable to refine this immortal cloud life extending pill. No matter how big the promise you make, it would be useless. Although I am unable to refine this immortal cloud life extending pill, I do have an immortal cloud life extending pill. It was passed down in my clan and was never used. If Senior Shen requires it, Senior Shen may have it. After Xiao Chen spoke, he stepped forward and took out the immortal cloud life extending pill from the universe ring. Then, he handed it to Shen Manjin. This trinket might be worth a lot to the senior generation, but it was completely useless to Xiao Chen. He might as well use it to gain a favor here. Coincidentally, he needed to ask Shen Manjin for help as well. Killing two birds with one stone, why not? Shen Manjin, who fell into despair, suddenly cheered up. She took the immortal cloud life extending pill and inspected it carefully. It was indeed a complete immortal cloud life extending pill. However, it seemed a little different. This is a superior grade immortal cloud life extending pill. It is significantly better than the regular immortal cloud life extending pill. It can extend a person's life by 40 years, Shen Manjin said hoarsely when she finally saw what was different about it. She initially did not dare to harbor any hope. Therefore, she did not expect to experience such a pleasant surprise. Shen Manjin revealed an extremely happy expression on her face. Yi Chen, whatever you need, you can tell me. I will make sure you get it immediately. If I am not able to do it, I will get someone else to help you. Xiao Chen did not have a pressing need for anything. While the materials of the beauty-nourishing pill were urgently needed, it was not worth exchanging the immortal cloud life extending pill for them. Can I have spirit stones? It would be best if I can get medial-grade spirit stones. Shen Manjin eyes opened wide. She did not expect that Xiao Chen would make such a simple request. She smiled. That's a good idea. I can give you 500 inferior-grade spirit stones and 20 medial-grade spirit stones. What do you think? Xiao Chen was astonished at being able to exchange it for so many spirit stones. After a while, Xiao Chen said, Actually, I came to Jade Maiden Peak today to ask for help. I was hoping to be able to purchase some spiritual herbs. Shen Manjin took the note that Xiao Chen handed to her. After she finished looking at it, she said, You probably do not have any contribution points. So you came to me seeking to pull some strings. Unfortunately, the herb fields on Jade Maiden Peak are not under my control. Furthermore, spiritual herbs requires contribution points. You can't use spirit stones. Xiao Chen said, In that case, may I ask how many contribution points would be required in exchange for these spiritual herbs? Is Senior willing to be my guarantor? I will owe contribution points which I will definitely repay within a month. Shen Manjin muttered to herself for a while before saying, you will probably require about 500 contribution points. Getting someone to be a guarantor does not conform to the sect's rules. However, if you urgently need these spiritual herbs, I can make an exception for you. Xiao Chen felt joy and he immediately made a promissory note. After Shen Manjin received it, she immediately called someone over. Soon, someone brought over all the herbs Xiao Chen needed. Take these spirit stones first. I only have 10 medial grade spirit stones on me. I will get someone to send you the remainder the day after. Before Xiao Chen left, Shen Manjin handed the spirit stones over to Xiao Chen. After Xiao Chen left Shen Manjin's pavilion, he looked up at the splendid sun in the sky. He was in a very good mood. Not only had he managed to deal with the matter for which he came to Jade Maiden Peak, he even managed to obtain many spirit stones for nothing in return. It was easy money landing in his lap. It looked like it had been a wise decision to steal Zhe Yunban's medicinal pill back then. Xiao Chen had a huge smile plastered on his face when he arrived at the herb field where Lu Sufeng was. Along the way, he met many Jade Maiden Peak disciples. They were all as pretty as flowers, they were all beautiful youths who were pleasing to the eye. No wonder there were so many people at the foot of the mountain, fighting for a chance to go in. Even if they were here to clear the rubbish, it would still be a kind of fortune to be able to see so many beautiful ladies. Xiao Chen was not stopped by anyone for questioning along the way, it was as though someone had informed everyone in advance. He managed to make his way directly to the herb field where Lu Sufeng was at. Lu Sufeng was sitting dispiritedly on the ground beside the herb field. There was a piece of straw in his mouth and there was a conical bamboo hat on his head. He had an extremely unsightly expression on his face. Xiao Chen smiled as he walked over. Why do you have such an unsightly expression? Have you been dumped? Lu Sufeng smiled bitterly, more or less. That Xiao brat pulled off my hood earlier. She immediately started laughing at my pig's head and laughed for a long time. That was not even the worst. She even called Miss Xinyan over. My image has been thoroughly destroyed. Do you think Miss Xinyan will still care about me in the future? This fellow wants to chase after a girl, yet he is not willing to put aside his pride. Xiao Chen had an incomparable disdain for him in his heart. He did not wish to continue discussing this topic. He said, I have acquired the herbs I need. I will go down and refine the medicine for your sister first. When Lu Sufeng heard this, his expression turned serious. To think ancestral martial ant is really willing to do this for you. How did you do it? I have a debt of 500 contribution points with ancestral martial ant as the guarantor. I said that I would repay it within a month, Xiao Chen answered with the truth. When Lu Sufeng heard this, he exclaimed in astonishment, you are done for. I'm not even able to accumulate 50 contribution points in a month. To think you actually want to amass 500 contribution points within a month. When Xiao Chen heard this, the color drained from his face. Could it be that 500 contribution points is a lot? Then why did Senior Shen not remind me of it? Actually, Xiao Chen had really misunderstood Shen Manjin. Shen Manjin had not done any sect missions for more than 100 years. Her impression of the value of contribution points was still stuck in that previous period. Thus, she did not feel that it was difficult to amass 500 contribution points in a month. If she had known about it, she would have extended the time needed to pay the loan back. What will happen if I cannot meet the deadline? Xiao Chen asked. Lu Sufeng scratched his head. It's hard to say, there has never been such a precedent. However, the rules regarding sect contribution points are the most important in Heaven Saber Pavilion. You will understand this better in the future. If you are the precedent and cannot accomplish it, the people from the Hall of Contributions will definitely not let you off easily. This is because they cannot casually allow such precedents to happen. Xiao Chen thought about it for a while and felt that Lu Sufeng made sense. Being the precedent already went against the rules. If he failed to fulfill the agreement, then the impact would be great. If we were to consider this from another perspective, then if Xiao Chen was part of the higher-ups, in order to uphold the prestige of the Hall of Contributions, he would be willing to kill the chicken to scare the monkey, to prevent people from speaking ill of them. TL note. Kill the chicken to scare the monkey. This means to make an example out of someone, to keep everyone else in line. Lu Sufeng said, Yi Chen, why don't you go ask ancestral martial ant to extend the deadline? While the two of them spoke, a large flock of birds came swooping down from the sky. These birds chose a very good time. The instant Lu Sufeng was distracted. Lu Sufeng was already in a bad mood. When he saw the situation, he cursed, bunch of bastards. Are you done yet? Shua. Shua. Lu Sufeng flicked his finger and several rocks shot out. Immediately, a few birds fell from the sky. There were a few more. Shua. Sounds in the flock of birds was completely scared off. Great finger techniques, senior brother. We have bird meat for dinner again tonight. Teehee. A cheerful and light-hearted voice could be heard. This was Xiao Yuhuan speaking happily as she picked up the birds on the ground. Seeing that Xiao Yuhuan still dared to come over, Lu Sufeng quickly chased her away and cursed, You brat. Still dare to show yourself. See if I beat you to death. Senior brother, there is no need to worry. Your pig's head is actually full of character. Who knows, maybe senior sister Xinyan might find it unique and fall in love with you. Seeing the two of them running around, Xiao Chen smiled. Then, he turned around and headed back to Shen Manjan's pavilion. He also felt it was best to look for Shen Manjan again to ask her to extend the deadline. What? Ancestral martial ant already left. When will she be back? When Xiao Chen had rushed back to the pavilion, the maid at the gates told him that Shen Manjan had left shortly after him. I do not know. Maybe a day or two, or maybe 3 to 5 months. Ancestral martial ant does not seem to follow any routines when she goes out. Xiao Chen could only descend Jade Maiden Peak helplessly. The huge crowd of disciples from other peaks were still waiting at the bottom of the peak. Xiao Chen ignored them and headed straight to Qingyan Peak. The most important thing to do now was to quickly refine the beauty-nourishing pill. Then, he had to think of a way to obtain 500 contribution points within a month, before he got into trouble. Halfway there, Xiao Chen suddenly stopped. He turned around but saw no one. Suddenly he said, Friend, it is time to show yourself after following me for so long. There's no response. Xiao Chen thought suspicious in his heart. Could I have sensed wrongly? Ever since I left Jade Maiden Peak, I kept getting the feeling that someone was following me. Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense to scan the area a few times, but could not detect anything. However, he no longer dared to place complete faith in his spiritual sense anymore. When he was in Evil Wind Valley, he could not sense the martial saint following him. Even after he repeated himself, no one showed themselves. Xiao Chen could no longer be bothered. Now, everyone knew the old peak master was still in Qingyan Peak. There should not be anyone seeking trouble with him at this time. Just as Xiao Chen turned away, a figure landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Chen prepared himself and quickly turned around. When he clearly saw who it was, he felt a headache coming on. If this person really wanted to seek trouble with him, there was no need for this person to fear the old peak master of Qingyan Peak. That person simply stood there looking at Xiao Chen, and Xiao Chen was not able to tell what that person was thinking. The atmosphere seemed odd. Xiao Chen saw that Leng Liasu did not seem like she was going to make a move against him. This was quite out of character for her. The two of them looked at each other for a long time. Finally, Leng Liasu could no longer resist asking, Yi Chen, let me ask you. Did you save me from Leng Tianyu the other day? Although he was quite suspicious about how she found out, this was a good thing. Maybe they could resolve the misunderstanding between them. Xiao Chen said indifferently, You could say so. Why did you save me? Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Back then, you saved me from berserking chi deviation in the pool of water. You accidentally saved me once and I saved you once. We are even now. When Leng Liasu heard this, she smiled. Even if you saved me, why did you take advantage of the situation and kiss me? Seems like I have not misunderstood you by calling you a lascivious bastard. Crap. I've been discovered. Xiao Chen said somewhat awkwardly. Did I? I don't seem to remember. Maybe you are mistaken. Am I that ugly? To think you don't even have the courage to admit to kissing me. Leng Liasu's expression changed as she spoke in a sullen voice. Xiao Chen could only retract his words. You are not ugly, I did indeed kiss you. Who? Suddenly, Leng Liasu rushed over to Xiao Chen and drew her saber from its scabbard with a huang dang sound. The saber light was very dazzling. It brought a strong wind as it hacked toward Xiao Chen violently. She seemed fine earlier, yet she attacked on a whim. Xiao Chen truly could not understand. He executed the 3 flowing cloud images and turned into an ocean. The saber moved gently, like a spray of water. Perfection like water, it is beneficial for many things and does not compete with them. Although it seemed like it did not compete, it competed by not competing. No matter how strong a force was, it cannot cause a great ripple. Perfection like water, it is beneficial to many things but does not disrupt them. It may seem like it does not disrupt and yet, it does so by not disrupting. No matter the strength of a force, it will not be able to create ripples. Even if it did cause a ripple, it would quickly calm down. You may use magnificent armies with thousands of men and horses to split the mountain and seas, but I remain unmoving, disrupting by not disrupting. This was the truth of the 3 flowing cloud images. To counterattack while defending, to deal with 10,000 changes by not changing. Dang. Leng Liasu took a step back, there was astonishment on her face. 3 months ago, she could still easily send Xiao Chen flying. Even though she was now an inferior grade martial saint, she was unable to make him retreat. Leng Liasu pushed her feet off the ground and hacked her saber toward Xiao Chen again. Xiao Chen frowned slightly and drew his saber with a huang dang sound. This time, he did not avoid her saber. Leng Liasu's attack did not contain any killing intent. If they fought, it would take a long time to end. Xiao Chen truly did not have any time to waste and could only try taking a risk. Indeed, Leng Liasu's saber blade stopped half an inch away from Xiao Chen's forehead. The instant the saber stopped, a violent wind blew at Xiao Chen, causing his hair to blow backward. Are you not afraid of me killing you? Leng Lu said coldly. Of all the masters to choose, you chose Lu Ruyu. Xiao Chen's expression turned cold. This was something that he did not like hearing. He said indifferently, it is my freedom to choose any master I want. I believe the grievances have been sorted out. I gave you an opportunity to kill me earlier, but you did not take it. In that case, I will take my leave first. After taking a few steps back, Xiao Chen turned around and executed the Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art. He then soared along the ground and soon disappeared from Leng Liasu's sight. As Leng Liasu watched Xiao Chen leave, she smiled gently, leaving after doing the deed. There is no such thing as a free meal. Lu Ruyu, let's see how you are going to compete with me this time. After Xiao Chen returned to Qingyan Peak, he did not want to think about Leng Liasu. He carefully started preparing to refine the beauty-nourishing pill. Although the rank of this pill was not high, the ingredients it required were rare, and it was tricky to refine. Amongst the ingredients, the herbs had to be of certain ages. In order to prevent failure, he had prepared a total of 5 sets of ingredients. This was the reason why the herbs were so expensive. When Xiao Chen took out the Azure Dragon Medicine Cauldron, Feng Feishui's figure appeared in his mind. He revealed a gentle smile as he recollected his thoughts. Seems like I have not refined new pills for a long time. I wonder what the success rates will be like. Xiao Chen took out the herbs in the universe ring set by set and arranged them on the table. Then, he closed his eyes and carefully recalled the steps for refining the beauty-nourishing pill. Not long after, Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes. His face was filled with confidence. He flicked his finger and 6 strands of purple flames, separated by about half a meter, turned into balls which floated around Xiao Chen. Now, Xiao Chen's cultivation was much higher than when he was in Mohe City. Naturally, he did not have to worry about running out of essence. Nor did he have to worry about having a lack of control, and only being able to control one flame. The instant he shot out the flames, his left hand smacked the table, skillfully causing 6 types of herbs to fly up, each of them entering a flame and getting refined. Hoo. With only a thought from Xiao Chen, his spiritual core entered the flames. It instantly entered the insides of the 6 herbs, and rapidly found their cores. Then Xiao Chen manipulated the flames to burn in a spiraling fashion. The 6 flames spun around Xiao Chen rapidly. The herbs started to melt within the flames. Xiao Chen moved with good coordination. He quickly placed 6 bottles on the table, and caught all the medicinal liquid without missing a drop. Then, he immediately sent a new batch of herbs into the flames. The herbs on the table slowly disappear in this manner and the number of bottles increased. Soon, the refinement of all the medicinal liquid was completed. The first step of refinement was complete. Xiao Chen exhaled in relief. He stretched out his right index finger and the fires gathered together. With a "su" sound, they entered into the Azure Dragon medicine cauldron. Xiao Chen followed the steps and slowly poured the medicinal liquid into the medicine cauldron. When all the medicinal liquid was poured in, a fragrant scent of herbs assaulted his nose, and spread throughout the room. Xiao Chen controlled the purple thunder true fire carefully as he slowly merged the medicinal liquids together. The unnecessary impurities slowly flowed out from the outlet of the Azure Dragon medicine cauldron. Although the method of refining the beauty-nourishing pill was complicated, it was not too difficult to refine it. After all, its rank was not high. It just needed a longer time. ZZ. After burning for a long time, a pill embryo was finally formed. Xiao Chen started to lower the temperature of the flame and initiated the 3rd step, using warm flames to slowly finalize the pill. This forming of the pill shape was the most important step of the refining process in determining the quality of the pill, which would define the grade of the pill. Thus, Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. Under Xiao Chen's manipulation of the purple flames, the lumpy pill embryo slowly became round and smooth. Finally, it turned into a brightly colored pill. Xiao Chen revealed a satisfied smile. After this was the final nourishment of the pill. Brightly colored circles appeared on the medicinal pill. Then, the refined pill plopped out of the outlet, landing in the porcelain bottle. Xiao Chen picked it up and smelled it. He felt some excitement in his heart. It was a success. He succeeded the first time he refined it. This was a good sign. A sincere expression of joy appeared on Xiao Chen's face. There were 4 more sets of ingredients. He could not let those go to waste, so he continued to refine them. However, he was not as lucky as the first time. His success rate was about half. Out of the 4 tries, he failed twice. Even so, the success rate was not considered low. Xiao Chen put away the 3 beauty-nourishing pills properly and headed over to Lu Ruyu's courtyard. Soon, he arrived at the gates of Lu Ruyu's courtyard. Just as he was about to knock, the gates opened, revealing Lu Ruyu's somewhat stunned face. The blood had already been completely washed off of her body. She was now dressed in the same way she normally did, in tight cultivator robes. Her complexion looked much better now. However, there were some faint scars on her face that had not faded. To a girl, it was a devastating blow as it affected their beauty. However, it appeared that Lu Ruyu did not seem to mind. "Why are you looking for me?" Lu Ruyu asked. Xiao Chen recovered his wits and nodded. Then, he handed the beauty-nourishing pill to Lu Ruyu. "Elder sister Ruyu, this is the beauty-nourishing pill that I refined. It can remove the scars on your body, as well as nourish your skin." When Lu Ruyu heard this, she smiled. She felt happy in her heart. Every girl liked to be beautiful. Naturally, Lu Ruyu was no exception. However, she did not have too high an expectation in this area. "Are you trying to bribe your master?" Lu Ruyu joked as she received the pill. Xiao Chen smiled. Elder sister Ruyu, I will be preparing to go to the Hall of Contributions in a while. I might not return to Qingyan Peak for a month. Hall of Contribution. Lu Ruyu was deep in thought for a while. Then, she said, that's good. Many of the martial techniques at the top of Qingyan Peak require contribution points in order to obtain them. Come with me. Your basic saber technique is already practiced to the small perfection. Before you go, let me teach you a secret technique of Qingyan Peak. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. Elder sister Ruyu, your injuries have not completely healed yet. You cannot circulate your essence. Wait until I come back. Although Xiao Chen really wanted to learn the secret technique of Qingyan Peak, with Lu Ruyu's current situation, it was not a good time for her to pass on the technique. If she circulated her essence while recovering, it would severely damage her body. Lu Ruyu smiled gently, there is no problem. I know my body very well. Qingyan Peak, Dueling Grounds. Lu Ruyu stood across from Xiao Chen and said, the 7 peaks of Heavenly Saber Pavilion each have an area they specialize in. The specialty of Qingyan Peak's saber technique is speed, a saber that is faster than wind. Thus, all of Qingyan Peak's secret techniques are related to speed. Qingyan Peak has a total of 7 secret techniques. Given the style of the Lunar Shadow Saber, there is only one that is suitable for you, Clear Wind Chop. Clear Wind Chop. Xiao Chen remembered that he once obtained a martial technique manual for the Clear Wind Chop. He could not help but rummage through his universe ring to look for it. After a while, he took out a martial technique manual and handed it over to Lu Ruyu. This is a martial technique manual I obtained in the past. Is this the one? Lu Ruyu felt it was strange. She took a look through it, then, under Xiao Chen's astonished gaze, she threw it into the air, pulled out her saber, and created a series of lights in the air which tore apart the Clear Wind Chop martial technique manual. Shua, shua. The sound of wind resounded. Even though Xiao Chen was across from it, he could feel the strong air flow. A breeze caused his clothes to flutter continuously. The book trembled non-stop in the air. All of its pages fell out and scattered. Then, they floated down page by page. They all landed neatly, stacked one on top of the other. When the small saber returned to the scabbard, all the pages were completely separated from one another. The surprising thing was that all the pages had landed in an orderly manner. The top page happened to be the cover of the manual. If Xiao Chen had not seen it for himself, he would have thought the manual on the ground was a book in perfect condition. It was too tidy. This is an incomplete copy that was leaked. It is useless. What I just displayed was the Clear Wind Chop. Did you see it clearly? Lu Ruyu explained to Xiao Chen. Nonsense, only once. How could he have seen it clearly? Xiao Chen shook his head honestly. When Lu Ruyu heard that, she said, it doesn't matter if you did not see it clearly. You just have to remember the key point of the Clear Wind Chop. Clear wind, cool breeze. You only see the cool breeze but not the saber. You only see the cool breeze but not the saber. Xiao Chen repeated this line in his heart a few times. Then, he suddenly gained enlightenment. When Lu Ruyu drew her saber earlier, the blade sliced through the air, causing a cool breeze. It was clearly a cool breeze caused by the saber. However, according to his senses, he clearly felt the presence of the cool breeze, but he could not clearly sense the saber blade. Seeing that Xiao Chen seemed to be enlightened, Lu Ruyu continued, the meaning of this sentence is, to hide the killing intent amidst the cool wind, so that the opponent cannot feel the presence of the blade. Such that they are not able to judge where the blade is coming from. Right after Lu Ruyu spoke, she took a step forward and drew her saber again. An intense air current was generated, creating an unending cool breeze. Xiao Chen was dazzled. He seemed to have seen the small saber in Lu Ruyu's hand disappear into the air. Although he could not sense the killing intent, he felt a certain instinct stir within his body. He quickly reacted and took 2 steps back. The moment his foot landed on the ground, the small saber appeared out of thin air, tearing through his shirt around his chest. Lu Ruyu withdrew the saber and tossed a book to Xiao Chen. This is a handwritten copy of the clear wind chop. Although it is a handwritten copy, it is a complete copy. The copy you had was incomparable to this one. That's all, you may go now. Xiao Chen took a quick look at the secret technique in his hands, then put it away properly. He asked, "That's it? I seem to have not learned anything." Lu Ruyu burst out in laughter. She used the saber scabbard in her hand to give Xiao Chen a smack. "What else do you want? This is the essence of what I have comprehended. It is already sufficient for you to avoid taking the wrong path. Just remember the sentence I told you. You only see the clear wind but not the saber. That's right, do not take missions that are too dangerous. After you return, I will make some time to teach you listening to the sword and communicating with it." Xiao Chen did not know how to answer. He felt that Lu Ruyu's kindness was quite unacceptable, it was too much. Lu Ruyu said, "You don't have to think too much. Although I am not that much older than you, we are still master and disciple. Passing down martial skills to you is part of my duty. Furthermore, helping you is equivalent to helping me." Xiao Chen bowed sincerely to Lu Ruyu, then he turned around and left the dueling grounds. He went to make preparations to leave Qingyan Peak and head for the heaven viewing platform. After Xiao Chen had long left, Lu Ruyu coughed a few times, she could no longer hold them in. The Hall of Contributions, which issued the sect missions, sat on the bustling heaven viewing platform. This was what Xiao Chen had heard from others along the way. After Xiao Chen descended Qingyan Peak, he immediately and hastily made for heaven viewing platform. Within Lingyun mountain range, heaven viewing platform was extremely eye-catching. The huge platform could be seen from anywhere, no matter how far you were. There was a saying, "A mountain may appear near when one looks at it, but the walk to reach it is exhausting." Heaven viewing platform was easily seen from Qingyan Peak, but it took Xiao Chen 2 hours to arrive at its foot despite running with all his might. The last time he came to heaven viewing platform, he rode on Zhe Yunban's jade ship. It was extremely convenient, unlike the trouble he had to go through today. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he looked at the towering heaven viewing platform. He could not help but feel a headache coming on when he remembered that he had to climb all the way to the top. This junior brother is going to heaven viewing platform, right? How about you ride on my flying spirit beast? You just need 2 inferior grade spirit stones. Little junior brother, ride on mine. I will only charge you 1 inferior grade spirit stone. Furthermore, my flying spirit beast is faster than his. Just as Xiao Chen was getting ready to go up, a group of people suddenly surrounded him. Behind each and every person of this group was a flying spirit beast. They seemed to be running a taxi business. However, the price was shocking. Just a single trip would require an inferior grade spirit stone. It was much more expensive than riding an airplane. In the end, Xiao Chen spent an inferior grade spirit stone and rented a flying spirit beast to go up the mountain. With his speed, he estimated that by the time he reached the heaven viewing platform, it would already be night. It was not worth the time. Furthermore, he was not short of spirit stones. He had just received a large sum of them earlier. There was a large amount of spirit stones in his universe ring, thus, he would not feel the pinch of using one. The person accepted the spirit stone and immediately got Xiao Chen to get on his flying spirit beast. His spirit beast was quite special. It was a wind-attributed bird. It flapped its wings, kicked up a large cloud of dust, and soared into the sky. It headed toward the heaven viewing platform at a very fast speed, as promised by that person. Xiao Chen felt it was strange that so many people possessed flying spirit beasts. How did they obtain them? Of all the tameable spirit beasts, the value of flying spirit beasts was the highest. This was because they were the hardest to tame. The spirit beast's owner saw Xiao Chen's confusion. He smiled and explained, "We get them in exchange for sect contribution points. They can be obtained in our sect's spirit beast hall. However, the rank of these spirit beasts are relatively low, and they are not very useful." Xiao Chen felt that it was strange. He asked, "What do you mean by that?" The person explained, "There is no spirit blood jade, and they were not raised from young. So, the spirit beasts that can be purchased would not exceed rank 2. You can easily imagine the strength of a rank 2 spirit beast. It would be impossible to utilize it in fights. It would already be a miracle if it did not hold you back. So it can only be used as a transportation tool. Why else do you think there are so many people at the foot of this mountain doing such business? They were all duped mercilessly. Xiao Chen understood that the problem did not lie in the spirit beast's strength being low. It was actually a problem of poor communication with the owner. This required a special method. This was something only the great Tang nation's beast-taming abode could do. The people of other nations did not have good taming methods. It was already very good for them to be able to train their spirit beasts to understand some simple commands. However, this person seemed very excited when speaking about it. Xiao Chen did not feel like interrupting him, thus, he let him continue speaking. After some time, they reached the top. Xiao Chen thanked him and then immediately asked around for the location of the Hall of Contributions. The size of the heaven viewing platform surpassed a small city. There were magnificent buildings everywhere. Although they were all disorderly, it seemed charming. There were people moving around, and it was bustling. After Xiao Chen found out the location of the Hall of Contributions, he started to fumble his way toward it slowly. This was his first time going there, so he did not know the way. After walking for a long time, he finally found the Hall of Contributions. The Hall of Contributions. What kind of place will it be? Xiao Chen entered with anticipation in his heart. There were plenty of people going in and out of the Hall of Contributions. Did I come to the wrong place? Xiao Chen looked at his surroundings in astonishment. The great hall was filled with tables with groups of people seated at each one. They were all eating and drinking while chatting in low voices. If there were waiters, this would have been exactly like a restaurant. Furthermore, it would have been one of the simplest types as there were no extravagant decorations. However, if one observed carefully, they would discover the atmosphere here was different from those restaurants. There was no loud chatter. Despite there being hundreds of people gathered here, one could only hear some soft whispering. Also, everyone was emitting an indistinct killing intent. When all the killing intent in the hall was gathered, it was like thousands of streams gathering together to form an ocean. For the people with relatively lower strength, they would be immediately knocked unconscious by the surging killing intent. Xiao Chen stayed calm and paid attention, as he had the feeling that this place was not as simple as he had thought it to be. He grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly and slowly walked towards the counter. The tables in the great hall were arranged in an orderly fashion. There was a broad walkway through the middle of them. When Xiao Chen was walking on it, he felt it was strange. He was the only one on the walkway. Dang! A saber tore through the air and flew towards him. Xiao Chen drew his lunar shadow saber and easily deflected the saber. Just as the saber was about to land on the ground, a strong suction force pulled the saber over. The owner of the saber was a male wearing the Wanren Peak uniform. He gave Xiao Chen a cold look and said, "Where did this wild brat come from? Don't you know the rules? Is it even your turn to receive a mission?" Xiao Chen looked in the direction of the source of the voice. In that direction, there were 10 odd inner disciples wearing the Wanren Peak uniform. They were all looking at Xiao Chen with killing intent. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion had never prohibited their disciples from fighting. As long as they did not kill or cripple the other person's cultivation, the law enforcement hall would not even bother about it. Not far away, someone saw Xiao Chen's Qingyan Peak's identify token. He could not help but mock. I wondered who it could be, that they did not know the rules. So, it is someone from Qingyan Peak. You from Qingyan Peak, just obediently find a table and sit down. Today is the day the Hall of Contributions issues the high-level sect mission. After the core disciples of the various peaks have accepted their missions, only then will the Hall of Contributions recover its normal state. Since they were sect missions, there would be differences in the difficulty. The rewards given would be different as well. The rewards for the high-level mission would naturally be shockingly high. Furthermore, These high-level missions were not always available. In fact, they were pretty rare. Like the saying goes, plenty of people, but very little meat. In order to prevent these high-level missions from being snatched by other people, the disciples of the 5 great peaks privately made up a set of rules. Every time a high-level mission appeared, it would be distributed amongst the core disciples of the various peaks. The people of the Hall of Contributions also kept one eye shut with regards to this. The difficulty of the high-level missions was high, and was definitely much more difficult than the regular missions. If the core disciples were the ones completing them, they would be able to complete them faster. Xiao Chen had come at a bad time. Coincidentally, there was a high-level mission coming out today. The core disciples of the Great Peaks were currently outside discussing how to distribute the high-level mission. Before the results came out, all the inner disciples in the Great Hall did not dare to make a move. They were afraid of causing a misunderstanding, causing people to think they were going to grab the high-level missions. There was a kind-hearted disciple who explained the rules in detail to Xiao Chen. He advised Xiao Chen to take a seat and get a mission after the high-level missions were taken. Don't bother advising him, he does not even care about the B and Peaks Peak Master. These are just the core disciples of the 5 great peaks. Why would he care about them? Someone who recognized Xiao Chen said snarkily. Hehe, that's true. I think he probably did this on purpose. Just an insignificant inferior grade martial Grand Master. I would be able to squash him with one hand. I don't believe he could trade blows with a peak martial king, said the Wanren Peak disciple who had made a move against Xiao Chen earlier. He was already a superior grade martial Grand Master. He was 2 grades higher than Xiao Chen. He was looking at Xiao Chen with a provoking gaze. High-level mission. If there really is one, then it might be possible for me to obtain 500 contribution points within a month. However, it seems a little too noisy here. Dragon seizing hand. Xiao Chen snorted coldly and killing intent appeared in his eyes. A huge black hand appeared from nowhere and flew past the crowd. Then it smashed downward onto the head of the Wanren Peak disciple. The crowd immediately scattered. The huge black hand descended and smashed on the table. Under the huge force, the wooden table shattered with a loud bang, filling the air with wooden splinters. Within the Hall of Contributions Great Hall, everyone looked at Xiao Chen in astonishment. They had not expected Xiao Chen to make a move. After all, he was alone. How could he be a match for so many Wanren Peak disciples? You really dare to attack me? If I don't beat you up badly and teach you how to respect your seniors, my name is not Li Yu, the leader cursed when he saw Xiao Chen making a move. Who? Just as he was prepared to lead the Wanren Peak disciples to charge forward, a huge black hand suddenly rose up like a demonic shadow and clenched itself into a fist. Li Yu was caught off guard and captured by the hand. Xiao Chen pulled gently and a huge force pulled Li Yu to the front. Then Xiao Chen punched him heavily on the chest. The huge black hand had vanished. When Xiao Chen's fist struck his chest, it caused him to vomit a large mouthful of blood and fall to the floor. Bang! When Li Yu was struggling to get up, Xiao Chen stepped on his chest and pushed him back down. Xiao Chen had put all his strength into this push, causing Li Yu to vomit another mouthful of blood. Just a sneak attack, how is that considered capable? If you have the guts then let me go and fight me again. Li Yu could not help but shout out. He did his best to resist Xiao Chen's foot but to no avail. Xiao Chen was not a 3-year-old child. Naturally, he would not fall for Li Yu's trick. The 10-odd Wanren Peak disciples at the side quickly rushed over. Since Xiao Chen had Li Yu under his foot, they did not dare to do anything. When Li Yu saw the situation, he shouted, "Do something! This is the Heaven Saber Pavilion. He won't dare to kill me. Kill!" When the crowd heard this, they no longer hesitated. Their sabers lit up with saber light and they all rushed at Xiao Chen to attack him. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and executed the 3 flowing cloud images without even drawing the lunar shadow saber from his scabbard. He turned into a boundless ocean. He was not even flustered against the attacks coming without pause. The lunar shadow saber was like flowing water, causing gentle ripples as it changed direction continuously. Those attacking Xiao Chen felt like they were attacking the surface of water. They caused the surface of the water to be disturbed, creating large as wave. The ocean tossed and turned. However, after a while, the water's surface returned to being calm. It became like a mirror again, without any ripples. Perfection like water, competing by not competing. The attacks that struck Xiao Chen's scabbard were all bounced back at themselves. At that moment, everyone was incredibly astonished. After a while, another wave of attacks was sent at Xiao Chen. Like earlier, Xiao Chen did not even move an inch. His heart was calm like still water. The scabbard of his saber firmly blocked every attack. Ka-ca. When the fifth wave of attacks were bounced back, Xiao Chen lost all patience and drew the lunar shadow saber with a huang dang sound. There was a piercing cold light when it was drawn out of the scabbard. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen pierced downward at Li Yu with the lunar shadow in his right hand. With a pu-si sound, the tip of the blade pierced an inch to the side of Li Yu's heart. It caused a large amount of blood to continuously spurt out. The originally quiet Great Hall now turned absolutely silent. Everyone in the Great Hall had their jaws open wide. They were all stunned, as though there had been a short circuit in their brain. Because of the angle, everyone thought Xiao Chen had pierced through Li Yu's heart with the saber. They all thought Xiao Chen had eaten the leopard's gall bladder. He actually dared to kill someone in the Hall of Contributions. TL note. Eating the leopard's gall bladder. This means that Xiao Chen was very daring. Usually used in a situation where someone did some incredulous act. Xiao Chen quickly pulled the saber out of Li Yu's body, causing a large amount of blood to spurt out. In the instant that the Wanren Peak disciples were distracted, he executed the three flowing cloud images. Xiao Chen's figure turned blurry. It was as though the entire place was filled with Xiao Chen's figure. When all the figures merged back together, a saber had struck every Wanren Peak disciple's chest. There was electricity dancing on all of their wounds as blood flowed continuously. It was extremely painful. All the Wanren Peak disciples fell to the ground, continuously moaning in pain. It was extremely piercing in the quiet Great Hall. Who? Suddenly two people appeared out of nowhere and checked Li Yu's injuries. They quickly pressed on some of his acupoints and exchanged a glance. They ignored the other injured people and retreated. Xiao Chen understood that these two people were the guards of the Hall of Contributions. If he had really killed Li Yu, they would not have just watched without doing anything. Xiao Chen continued to walk forward, ignoring everyone's gazes. He completely ignored everything, including the rules the five great peaks had set for themselves. He was ready to go see what kind of high-level mission was available. In Xiao Chen's opinion, since it was the mission from the Hall of Contribution, everyone had the right to take it. Monopolizing these missions was a form of bullying. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was desperately in need of contribution points. Even if he had to offend these people, it did not matter. He had already offended these people at the heaven ascending platform, thus this would not make much of a difference. An old man with his eyes shut sat behind the counter. Xiao Chen walked to the front and knocked on the counter. He said, "Stop pretending, I'm here to take a mission." The old man opened his eyes slowly. His eyes were dull, as though he had just woken up. He smiled. "I just dozed off, that's all. Not pretending to sleep. This is your first time taking a mission, hand over your identity token to me first." The old man received the identity token Xiao Chen handed over. He took a look and said, "Qingyan Peak, Yi Chen. I have not gone out for a while. I did not expect that Qingyan Peak to have already recruited someone. Leave the identity token with me first, I will record it down. Go to the second floor to take the mission." Second floor. What second floor? Xiao Chen looked around but did not see any staircase. He could not help but look suspiciously at the old man. The old man was holding Xiao Chen's identity token and carving something on it. When he saw Xiao Chen looking at him, he remembered something and said, "I forgot, this is your first time here. Just push that door open, enter, and then you will see it. Xiao Chen looked in the direction of where the old man was pointing at. Behind the counter, there was a door hidden in the shadows. The door was very concealed, and if one did not look carefully, they would not notice it. Xiao Chen walked to the door and pushed it open, then entering it as advised. Before he stepped on the floor, Xiao Chen felt a little dazzled. The scenery in front of him changed, and he stepped into a huge library. There is actually a small spatial formation here, Xiao Chen thought in astonishment before he started to check out the place. There was a row of people in front writing something down rapidly. Messenger pigeons kept flying in and out non-stop. This environment was clearly sealed, but Xiao Chen did not know how these messenger pigeons came in. The first elder of Baikan Peak issued a mission. He needs the spirit core of a rank 4 spirit beast. Record it down quickly. Ordinary mission level. 5 contribution points. Jade Maiden Peak, they need someone to watch the herb fields again. Just like before, simple difficulty. 5 contribution points for half a month. The Spirit Beast Halls people need to capture 10 rank 5 Spirit Beasts infants. Mission difficulty difficult. Every infant earns 15 contribution points. The people receiving the messenger pigeons quickly read out the contents of the letters. Immediately someone would record it down. This was how the Hall of Contributions operated. These recorded missions would then be sent to the next level to undergo another approval, to see if the difficulty and the reward were appropriate. After the second approval, there was still the final approval. However, this was only for the missions rated difficult. The missions rated below difficult could be issued after the second approval. The sect missions could be sorted into 3 categories: basic leveled, high leveled, and special leveled. Each level was then sub-rated as simple, ordinary, or difficult. Xiao Chen walked up to the place where missions were issued, in front of a wooden wall. A Hall of Contribution staff member, the one in charge of issuing missions, was behind the wall. That person looked through the window in the wooden wall and saw Xiao Chen. He asked, "Are you here to take a mission?" This person clearly knew that aside from Qingyan Peak and Jade Maiden Peak, the other 5 peaks had set down rules. When he saw Xiao Chen's face, he realized it was not one of the core disciples from the 5 peaks. Thus, he felt suspicious. Xiao Chen nodded. "Pass me the detailed list of high-leveled missions. Which peak's disciple are you? Show me your identity token." The man did not immediately agree to Xiao Chen's request. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. He said, "I am a disciple from Qingyan Peak. My name is Yi Chen. This is my first time coming to take a sect mission. My identity token was given to the old man downstairs." Qingyan Peak. That person said in a strange manner, "Wait for a while, let me go verify that." Xiao Chen felt slight angry in his heart. He finally understood why Lu Ruyu worked so hard. It is because as a Qingyan Peak disciple, wherever he went, people would make things difficult for him. That person seemed to be discussing with the higher-ups. After a long time, he returned to the window and handed Xiao Chen a list. "These are the high-leveled missions that have been issued today. Take a look." Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He received it and looked at it carefully. There was a total of 10 missions on the list, and their difficulty were slightly harder. Using the process of elimination, Xiao Chen first got rid of the missions that were clearly impossible to complete, such as killing 10 rank 6 spirit beasts within a week. After eliminating those, there were only 5 missions left. Xiao Chen continued to filter out the missions that required him to work with someone. After this, there were only 3 missions left. Guarding the Spirit Vein for a month, 800 contribution points awarded after completion. Killing 100 rank 5 spirit beasts. No time limit. No limit on type of spirit beast. 1000 contribution points awarded after completion. And picking a rank 7 herb. Yellow Springs grass. No time limit. 2000 contribution points awarded after completion. No wonder these high-leveled sect missions would be monopolized by people. The rewards were too attractive. Even the lowest one had a reward of 800 contribution points. Xiao Chen thought carefully for a while before finally choosing the mission to guard the spirit vein. He had used the same method of elimination. Although there was no time limit on the mission to kill spirit beasts, it was definitely impossible to finish it within a month. As for the mission to pick the Yellow Springs grass, Xiao Chen could only shake his head and smile bitterly. Although the rewards were shockingly high, he did not even know where it grew. How could he pick it? Guarding the spirit vein referred to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's spirit stone vein. Aside from guarding it for a month, there were no other compulsory objectives. All he had to do was guard it for a month. Although the reward was not high, it was more than sufficient for Xiao Chen. I choose guarding the spirit vein. This is my first time accepting a mission. What are the procedures? Guarding the spirit vein. Just sign over here. Come over tomorrow morning. There is no limit to the number of people who can take this mission. When everyone gathers together, then we will set off. As for the procedure, just bring this wooden token down. The mission giver took out a contract and got Xiao Chen to sign it. Then, he handed him an exquisite wooden token. Xiao Chen received it and took a look. Aside from a string of words carved on it, there was nothing special about it. However, when Xiao Chen scanned it with his spiritual sense, he could feel a strong strand of qi in there. Wang. A strand of qi came from above the sky and went through the Hall of Contributions, entering into Xiao Chen's head. Do not act rashly. Xiao Chen was startled and quickly retrieved his spiritual sense. He looked carefully around his surroundings but did not discover anyone paying attention to him. He quickly left after that. The owner of the strand of qi was very strong. It could be possible he thought Xiao Chen was intending to change the qi in it. Thus, he issued a warning to him immediately. There were too many hidden talents in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chen felt fear in his heart, and he no longer dared to release his spiritual sense. He opened the door he entered from and was sent downstairs immediately. Shua. A silver identity token came flying at Xiao Chen. He caught it and took a look, noting that it was his own identity token. The old man smiled at Xiao Chen and said, "Young man, you may leave now. Remember, don't rashly touch the strand of qi in the token. Otherwise, a disaster might unfold." Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. This was an expert presenting himself as an ordinary person. So the strand of qi was left by this old man in front of him. Xiao Chen nodded and prepared to leave the Hall of Contribution. When Xiao Chen appeared, a group of people immediately rose up from their table. They all headed over to Xiao Chen in a menacing manner. Although they all wore different uniforms, they all had 3 golden lines on their collar. Apparently, this was the mark of a Heavenly Saber Pavilion core disciple. These people were all at least peak martial grand masters, only one step short of becoming martial saints. Xiao Chen's expression turned cold. He knew they did not have good intentions. However, he did not fear them. He stepped forward and greeted them. Currently, martial grand masters, aside from those with inherited martial spirits, were not able to pressure him at all. You are Yi Chen. One of them, who was wearing Wanren Peak's uniform, walked forward and said sternly to Xiao Chen. He was emitting killing intent as he stared at Xiao Chen. That's right. Remember my name, Yang Qi. You can go and. Before Yang Qi finished speaking, Xiao Chen smiled and quickly drew his saber. An intense cold light flew at Yang Qi. Seeing that Xiao Chen actually made the first move, Yang Qi's lips curled up in a cold smile. 250-centimeter long short sabers appeared in his hand. His right hand swung in the air gently and deflected the light from the lunar shadow saber. The short saber in his left hand struck with the speed of lightning, piercing towards Xiao Chen's chest. This was the first time he had met a person who wielded 2 sabers, and he was not used to fighting them. Xiao Chen could only dodge first and then execute the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art. He pushed his feet off the ground, and his figure seemed to turn into a flood dragon as he moved in an arc, dodging Yang Qi's attack. Xiao Chen landed firmly. However, just as he executed the 3 flowing cloud images, Yang Qi had already arrived before Xiao Chen. Yang Qi's twin sabers attacked in a very smooth manner. The two of them used one move each. Under the assistance of the three flowing cloud images, Xiao Chen normally could easily deal with the opponent's attacks. However, the angle of this opponent's attack was too strange. Furthermore, it was very fast. Soon, Xiao Chen was not able to keep up with his pace. Xiao Chen felt like he was pulling down the east wall to repair the west wall, a task more than exhausting. Xiao Chen was forced to retreat repeatedly. He executed the three flowing cloud images to its limit and held on bitterly, stolid like a vast ocean. TL note. Pull down the east wall to repair the west wall. This means to sacrifice something in order to accomplish something else. Hu Kai. Suddenly, Yangqi threw out a short saber. The short saber spun continuously in the air, flying towards Xiao Chen, its speed nothing to scoff at. The instant the short saber left Yang Qi's hand, another short saber reappeared in his hand. When Xiao Chen evaded one, another short saber came flying at him again. Currently, there were two short sabers in the air. In each of Yang Qi's hands was a short saber as well. Whenever the short sabers in the air returned to him, Yang Qi threw out the ones in his hands and caught the returning short sabers. Thus, there were two sabers spinning in the air continuously. Furthermore, Yang Qi did not stop attacking with the short sabers in his hands. Xiao Chen, who was already struggling with his defense, found the situation hard to manage. There were several wounds left on his arms and legs. Xiao Chen started racking his brain for ideas. The three flowing cloud images could defend against very strong attacks, but the weakness of the three flowing cloud images was plain obvious once the enemy's attack reached an excessive extreme in speed. He had to think of an idea quickly. Xiao Chen slowly realized that something was wrong. These four short sabers were likely not the opponent's best yet. Furthermore, Xiao Chen discovered that this martial technique was very special. The more short sabers he wielded, the faster the speed of the sabers. When he only had two sabers, its speed was slower by at least half its current speed. This is Wanren Peak's secret technique, chaotic flowing sabers. It is said that when practiced to its peak, it can control 18 short sabers. Being able to easily control 4 short sabers, he truly deserves his status as Wanren Peak's core disciple. Given his cultivation as a peak martial grand master, in addition with the might of his secret technique, Yangqi should be able to put up a fight against inferior grade martial saints. There should be no problems dealing with an inferior grade martial grand master. The most important factor was that he had allowed Yangqi to gain the advantage. Given the situation, he no longer had any chances to flip things around. After the chaotic flowing sabers was executed, its speed would only become faster and faster. Even if he had a martial technique that could allow him to make a comeback, he would not even have the opportunity to execute it. This fellow is too daring. Despite being alone, he dared to injure so many Wanren Peak disciples in the Hall of Contribution. Yangqi is not the only core disciple of Wanren Peak. Furthermore, there is still a true inheritor disciple behind them that hasn't appeared yet. He is truly reckless. The fight got more and more intense and Xiao Chen's situation was worrying. The people around all commented that Xiao Chen was, after all, just an inferior grade martial grand master. When he went against the stronger Yangqi, he would not have any chances. Xiao Chen remained quiet. The lunar shadow saber in his right hand was moving like water, blocking the short sabers in Yangqi's hand. His left hand that held the scabbard moved around. He blocked the short sabers that spun in the air one by one. Hu Kai. Yangqi took out another 2 short sabers that hung from his waist. In an instant, the number of short sabers that he controlled became 6. Its speed became even faster and the saber lights twirled around like flowing shadows. Metallic clangs resounded as the weapons met non-stop. Xiao Chen's arms gained a few more fresh saber wounds. Although Xiao Chen was at a disadvantage, his heart was as calm as still water. He did not panic at all. A fierce fire slowly started to burn in his right eye and it stored up power while preparing to be unleashed. It is not time yet, this is not his limit, Xiao Chen thought to himself. The most unique characteristic of the chaotic flowing sabers was its continuity. The more short sabers the user controlled, the stronger the continuity required. Thus, its increase in speed with the number of sabers was something that it forced was to do. If it slowed down and the number of sabers had increased, the continuity would be broken off. It was like the timing belt in a car. If it slowed down, the speed of the car could immediately slow down, or even stop working. If this belt broke, what would happen to the car? If the car was moving at a high speed then the belt broke suddenly, the car would be as good as trashed. Xiao Chen was waiting for such a chance. When Yang Qi's speed had reached his limits, his move would be thoroughly broken, leaving him to be easily defeated in one hit. As long as he did not sustain any major damage before this, Xiao Chen would be able to endure the rest. Fu Si. Another wound appeared on Xiao Chen's right arm, spurting out blood. Xiao Chen bit his lips and maintained a resolute look. He did not reveal the slightest bit of pain on his face. Yang Qi's sweat dripped continuously from his forehead and fell on the ground with a tida sound. He was feeling very anxious because this chaotic flowing saber's exhausted essence very rapidly. He had already reached the point of controlling 6 sabers but he was not able to defeat Xiao Chen. If this carried on, before Xiao Chen got struck down, Yang Qi would be defeated as a result of exhausting his essence. If that happened, he would have failed as a result of a lack of final effort. Kill. Yang Qi's expression turned cold and he clenched his teeth. 2 short sabers suddenly appeared from his sleeves. The sabers spun around continuously, creating an air current as it flew towards Xiao Chen's chest. Xiao Chen was already prepared for this and he immediately flung his upper body backwards. The 2 sabers flew over, right above his face. He then kicked out with one foot, intending to force Yang Qi to retreat. Xiao Chen's other foot pushed off the ground and executed the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art. He immediately soared into the air. After Xiao Chen landed, he pushed off the ground again and appeared behind Yang Qi. Using the explosive movement speed of the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art, he managed to escape from Yang Qi's unceasing attacks. Yang Qi was not slow either and reacted very quickly. Before Xiao Chen landed, he somersaulted to the side and Xiao Chen was once again in front of him. At first glance, the 8 spinning short sabers looked like countless sabers slicing through the air. It generated a strong air current, forming a small cyclone. Now, this should be your limit. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up as he flipped the scabbard in his left hand around. A short saber flying at him slid directly into the scabbard with a shua sound. He revealed a faint smile as he leaned to the side to avoid getting injured at any critical points, allowing a saber to stab into his left shoulder. Blood immediately flowed out and an expression of pain flashed on Xiao Chen's face for an instant. However, Xiao Chen's hands did not stop moving. He tossed away the scabbard in his hand with lightning speed and he caught another flying short saber with his hand directly, resulting in a bleeding wound on his palm. Yang Qi's continuous chaotic flowing sabers were instantly disrupted. There were only 3 sabers left flying in the sky. Xiao Chen shouted, "Arclight chop!" A purple arc light with electricity dancing on it was fired out. The electric light exploded, causing a huge shockwave in the air. The 3 short sabers were immediately knocked away. The chaotic flowing sabers were actually broken like that. There was an astonished cry from the crowd. Xiao Chen was actually able to use such a self-harming method to break Yang Qi's chaotic flowing sabers, which had reached its peak. The instant the chaotic flowing sabers was broken, the essence that was flowing smoothly in Yang Qi's body immediately turned chaotic. His aura became very unstable as he quickly retreated backwards. "You want to run but can you?" Xiao Chen smiled coldly and shouted, "Purple thunder true fire. Shoot." The intense flame burning in Xiao Chen's right eye immediately gathered into a purple pillar of light before firing out. This was what Xiao Chen had comprehended from the ice thread of the ice ape he fought before. Since cold chi could gather and form a thread, then with the same logic, fire could do so as well. The purple thunder true fire, which Xiao Chen had spent a long time storing up power for, instantly pierced through Yang Qi's chest. A finger-sized wound appeared, blood flowed out continuously. Yang Qi tripped over and fell to the ground. He held his hand to his chest, trying to stop the bleeding. However, it was in vain, it did not help at all. Xiao Chen ignored him and tossed aside the short saber in his hand. He then pulled the short saber out of his left shoulder and picked up his scabbard. After that, he slowly made his way to the exit of the Hall of Contributions. The crowd automatically made a path for him. Xiao Chen walked to the exit step by step in this manner. Hold on. Finally, the other core disciples of Wanren Peak could not resist calling out Xiao Chen any longer. 3 Wanren Peak core disciple walked over to Xiao Chen. Because they had to take Yang Qi's pride into consideration, they did not come up to surround Xiao Chen in the previous fight. However, he had defeated a lot of Wanren Peak's inner disciple earlier. Now, he even defeated the core disciple Yang Qi. If they simply allowed him to walk out of the Hall of Contributions in such a grandiose manner, Wanren Peak would lose all respect. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Do the few of you have any advice for me? You injured many of our Wanren Peak disciples and you want to swagger out like that. Xiao Chen found it funny and he smiled faintly. If they did not make the first move to attack me and then verbally provoked me first, would I have injured many Wanren Peak disciples? In that case, senior brother Yang Qi was only asking you a question. Why did you make the first move to injure him? Xiao Chen's expression turned frosty as he replied in a cold voice, this is never ending. Your skills are inferior to others and yet you have such a vile attitude. If you want to get in my way then state clearly, one-on-one or all together. Whichever you want. The 3 of them all had the same thought, if I went one-on-one, I'm not confident of handling him alone. However, if the 3 of us attacked together in front of everyone here, we would lose all our face. This is an impossible situation, what should we do? I'm on a tight schedule. If you are not willing to fight now, you can look for me at other times. I'll be willing to accompany you. Xiao Chen could make out the thoughts of the 3 with one glance. He could not be bothered with them. After he spoke, he immediately walked out. Xiao Chen was indeed on a tight schedule. He did not have the time to dawdle here. The mission to guard the spirit vein was going to start tomorrow. He only had one night to prepare himself. The mission to guard the spirit vein might sound simple, but for it to become a high-leveled sect mission with such a high reward, there must be some danger involved. After all, the person managing the sect missions was no fool. They would not give out contribution points so easily. Xiao Chen decided to go to the market in the heaven viewing platform. He originally had slightly more than 1,000 spirit stones. Adding in the ones he obtained from Shen Manjin, he almost had 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones. With so many spirit stones, he had a sufficient amount for his cultivation. If he hanged onto them and did not spend them, it would be quite wasteful. Xiao Chen swallowed a blood replenishing pill and dealt with the injuries on his body. After Xiao Chen asked around for the location of the market, he slowly fumbled his way over. Aside from the slightly deeper wound on his shoulder, the other injuries were all superficial. When the medicinal energy of the blood replenishing pill spread out and he rested for a night, there should not be much of a problem. After searching for a long time, Xiao Chen finally found the entrance of the heaven viewing platform's market. Before entering, one actually needed to pay an entrance fee of a spirit stone. One could not help but feel that it was shady. The remunerations of an ordinary inner disciple were only 15 spirit stones per month. If they did not have any other sources of income, they would feel a heartache after using this spirit stone. The market was very bustling. In this place, the Heaven Saber Pavilion could sell or trade their goods here. There were also official shops. They sold all sorts of goods, like martial techniques, spirit weapons, battle armors, cultivation techniques. Everything that was needed could be found. However, in this place, all the goods were traded for using spirit stones. The money of the mortal world did not have much use here. However, there was a place where mortal money could be exchanged for spirit stone. Back when Xiao Chen looted all of the Zhang clan's hundreds of years of savings, he had obtained a total of 30 million gold taels. He spent 20 million gold taels at the Flying Snow Manor, which left 10 million gold taels of banknotes in his universe ring. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Chen decided to change them all into spirit stones. In the past, Fatty Jin had unintentionally revealed that the top auctions of the Tianwu continent all used spirit stones to trade. Gold taels were completely useless there. Rather than leaving it to rot in his universe ring, he might as well make use of this opportunity to exchange them all. Within this market, the place to exchange gold taels for spirit stones charged an administration fee, even though it was established by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When Xiao Chen got to the shop, there were still some people in there. They were inner disciples who were preparing to go down the mountain. Most of them were using spirit stones to exchange for gold taels. The owner of the shop was an ordinary person without any cultivation. He was dressed in premium satin and had a mustache that was split into 2 whiskers. There was a twinkle in his eyes. This was the typical look of a merchant. When the rest of them left, that man walked over to Xiao Chen with a gleeful smile on his face. This little brother has been waiting for a long time. It must be a large sum, right? He is pretty insightful. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Just call me Yi Chen. Might I know this boss's name?" Haha, I don't dare claim to be the boss, just an assistant. If you do not mind, you can call me Old Hu, the boss spoke in an unhurried manner as he revealed a smile. Xiao Chen did not waste any time on further pleasantries and took out stacks of banknotes from the universe ring. He arranged them neatly on the table and they soon filled the entire exquisite wooden table. Old Hu was shocked and it clearly showed on his face. His mustache curled upwards as he slowly walked to the shop entrance and cautiously closed the door. He then hung up a sign that said, "Closed." After he doing that, he turned around to face Xiao Chen and said, "Looks can be deceiving. Little brother Yi is indeed dealing with a large sum. I estimate there is about 10 million gold taels worth of banknotes. Are you exchanging them all for spirit stones?" Xiao Chen nodded. Old Hu smiled. This must be the first time you are doing an exchange. If you make an exchange on such a large scale, you will lose out a lot. Could it be that the exchange rates would change as a result of the large amount? Xiao Chen was filled with doubts as he asked, "How so?" "Take a look over there." Old Hu turned around and pointed to a wooden board on the wall. Xiao Chen looked at where Old Hu was pointing. The wooden board clearly stated the exchange rates of spirit stones. 3,000 gold taels could be exchanged for 1 inferior grade spirit stone. However, when the amount exceeded 100,000, it became 5,000 for 1 inferior grade spirit stone. The higher the transaction amount, the lower the exchange rate became. Xiao Chen continued to look downwards. When he reached 10 million gold taels, 10,000 gold taels only could be exchanged for 1 spirit stone. This was not just shady on an ordinary level, Xiao Chen thought speechlessly. 10,000 gold taels for 1 spirit stone. That is to say, the 10 million can only get him 1,000 inferior grade spirit stones. What's going on? Exchanging for just 1 only required 3,000 gold taels. How come the higher the number gets, the exchange rates goes higher as well? Xiao Chen asked as he could not understand. If he made the exchange once a day, he could get close to 4,000 inferior grade spirit stones. However, if he changed it all in one go, that would only be a quarter of what he could get. This was something that nobody could accept. Old Hu smiled faintly. There were other people who used a large amount of gold taels to change for spirit stones. They were all from the wealthy mortal clans and had no ways to obtain spirit stones. Thus, they tried to think of ways to seize the opportunity. Just think about it, which has a higher value? Spirit stones or gold taels? After a spirit stone is used, it is gone. However, gold circulates, it will never disappear. Furthermore, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion does not have that much spirit stones for people to make exchanges with. Thus, they instituted this rule. However, if you used spirit stones to exchange for gold taels, the more you exchange the more you get. This is the principle of gold having a value and spirit stones being priceless. Xiao Chen thought about this principle. It was easy for a cultivator to gain gold, much easier than getting spirit stones. If the exchange rate was too high, it would not be a good deal for the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After all, this money did not belong to Xiao Chen in the first place. He felt a slight pinch and it was over. In the end, he decided to make the exchange. Old Hu immediately counted the banknotes with a smile on his face. After he finished counting them, he immediately passed Xiao Chen 1,000 spirit stones. After Xiao Chen took the spirit stones and left far away, Old Hu went wild with joy. He thought to himself, if there were a few more idiots like him, he would get promoted soon. Actually, Xiao Chen felt like he suffered a loss. Old Hu's final smile clearly showed that he was unable to wait. However, this was something he snatched away. After all, it was sufficient that he could exchange them for spirit stones. Xiao Chen went to the place where the stalls could be set up freely and started shopping. There were many things and the sheer number of things there was dizzying. With just a casual glance, Xiao Chen saw a lot of treasures that were normally hard to find. Horn of the rank 5 spirit beast, silver horned tiger. Selling for 20 spirit stones or exchanging for a rank 4 and above medicinal pill for healing wounds. Xiao Chen's gaze stopped at a particular stall. The person running it was a middle-aged man who was an inferior grade martial saint. In the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, once one reached a certain age, if they had not advanced to the appropriate cultivation realm, they would stop providing remunerations. They could choose to go down the mountain and be free, or they could choose to stay in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, they had to do everything themselves. Furthermore, they had to pay a certain sum of spirit stones. The middle-aged man in front of him should belong to the latter category. Since Lingyun mountain range had dense spiritual energy, he could not bear to leave. Thus, he chose to stay. I want this beast horn. However, can it be cheaper? How about 10 spirit stones? A youth was standing in front of the stand, bargaining. The middle-aged man shook his head. No way, this is the lowest price already, it cannot be any cheaper. 15 spirit stones. This is the highest price I can offer. What do you think? If you want to sell it, you have to be fast. Consider yourself lucky, I need this beast horn to refine a medicinal pill. Otherwise, no one would be interested in it. That person continued to bargain. He was clearly dissatisfied. The middle-aged man shook his head again. I am not selling it for anything less than 20 spirit stones. The horns of the silver-horned tiger only grows an inch every 10 years. For it to grow to this length, it would require at least 150 years. This kind of beast horn contains a very dense spiritual energy. It is good for making strong bone weapons, or it can be ground into powder for medicinal pills. It is very valuable. 20 spirit stones is already the lowest price. Bang! That person threw the beast horn back onto the stall heavily. He said with despise in his voice, "What a trash, shamelessly staying on the mountain. Me wanting your product is an honor to you. Let's see who will buy your beast horn. Let's see how are you going to pay the spirit stones to the main hall. Just wait to be chased off the mountain. I showed you my regards but you rejected it. You are simply asking for trouble." The youth only had a cultivation at the medial grade martial grand master. Despite being mocked, the middle-aged person remained expressionless. He was very calm. I have to respect the efforts I put in. Selling things cheaply is selling myself cheaply. If I was really chased away, I would be willing. After that youth mocked him a few more times, he walked away, cursing and swearing as he did so. As he left he would turn his head back occasionally, looking at the silver-horned tiger's horn. It was clear that he was not resigned. Xiao Chen walked in front and carefully inspected the beast horn at the stall using his spiritual sense. It was indeed as the middle-aged man had said. It was a beast horn that was at least 100 years old. It was full of dense spiritual energy. There could not be a better material for the life bestowal spell. Although with Xiao Chen's cultivation realm, he could use ordinary materials to fight using the life bestowal spell. However, its effects were not as good as when he used quality materials. Friend, are you here to buy this beast horn as well? If you are intending to bargain, then don't bother. I am not lowering the price. Xiao Chen smiled. I am indeed going to bargain, there is a problem with your price. The middle-aged man's complexion changed. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Chen continued, your price is a little on the low side. 20 spirit stones is already selling it cheaply. I am offering you 50 spirit stones, this is my respect for your efforts. After Xiao Chen spoke, he dug out 50 spirit stones and handed it to that person. Then he took the beast horn, stored it in his universe ring, and turned around to leave. The words of the middle-aged man had touched him. He stayed on the heavenly saber pavilion alone, receiving cold, detached, and supercilious looks from others. The middle-aged man was much better than the him of the past. Under such an environment, he was still able to maintain such a mentality. This stirred up the compassion in Xiao Chen, so he decided to help him out. After all, 50 spirit stones was only a small sum to him now, perhaps it could be used to resolve a desperate situation for others. Little brother, why did you help me? The middle-aged man chased after Xiao Chen and asked. Xiao Chen turned around and smiled gently. A river flows in the east for 30 years, then a river flows in the west for 30 years, who knows what will the future brings? Who knows, maybe by helping you today, you would end up making your mark in future. By then, it would be worthwhile to have you owe me a favor. TL note. A river flows in the east for 30 years, then a river flows in the west for 30 years. This refers to how unpredictable the flow of a river can be and how it can frequently change. It is basically saying the future is uncertain. A river flows in the east for 30 years, then a river flows in the west for 30 years, who knows what will the future brings? The middle-aged man repeated this sentence in his heart, however, will I, Lan Cho, have such a day? Taking advantage of the moment he was distracted, Xiao Chen turned around and used his movement technique to quickly leave. It was simply a small effort on his part, there was no need to focus on it too much. The day was still young, so Xiao Chen continued shopping. Occasionally, a few things caught his eyes: high-rank spirit beast blood, rare ores, and rare herbs. 100 spirit stones was spent very quickly. A stall that had many people gathering around it appeared in front of Xiao Chen. He was feeling very curious, he pushed his way through the crowd. The stall owner was a youth of about 20 years of age. He was a peak martial grand master wearing bike and peak uniforms. There were 3 gold lines embroidered on his collar. This was a bike and peak core disciple. There was only one item in his stall, a half-meter long strip of wood that was as wide as the width of a finger. The strip of wood lay quietly in the stall, but there was a visible light green spiritual energy wafting out of it, light green smoke. Fuzang spiritual wood. Xiao Chen exclaimed to himself. This tree had an inexhaustible spiritual energy. Its never-withering flower bloomed once every 1,000 years. It bore fruits every 10,000 years. The fruit it bore was an undying divine fruit. After eating it, one would gain a longevity comparable to the heavens and the earth. They would never die and never grow old. When a branch of this tree was broken off, it would give off a green smoke. The strip of wood placed on the stall was exactly the same as how the Fuzang spiritual wood was described. However, this was not the true Fuzang spiritual wood. Xiao Chen extended out his spiritual sense and examined it. He discovered that although it contained a very dense spiritual energy, it was slowly being reduced. As for the branch of the Fuzang tree, after it was broken off, the essence contained in it would be inexhaustible as well, it would not be reduced. This branch should be broken off from an inferior breed of the Fuzang tree. Even so, it has a high value. This was because this type of trees had a spiritual intelligence, they understood rudimentary cultivation. If it was an older spirit tree, it might even be stronger than regular cultivators. According to legends, the Fuzang tree had the strength of a martial emperor. This is such a good thing, why is no one buying it? Xiao Chen thought as he was filled with doubts. Was the price too high? This is broken off from a 1,000-year-old Wadung tree. I need a red nascent fruit. I will only make a trade and will not sell it. If there are no offers, I will use it myself. Wadung tree. Its bark was as green as jade. Its leaves were like flowers. It was beautiful, elegant, magnificent, and pure. Its spiritual energy was like it was made by the heavens. According to legends, when its leaves fell, they turned into shimmering gold leaves. It was said that the divine phoenix of the ancient era would not perch on a tree unless it was a Wadung tree. Although it was not comparable to the Fusang tree, it was still a famous spirit tree. If it really had existed for 1,000 years, its value would be considerable as well. Not only could it be used to refine medicinal pills, if one absorbed the spiritual energy in it, it could raise their cultivation realm. If it was made into an ornament and worn, it would be soothing for the nerves. It would keep one calm, leading to them achieving more with less effort when cultivating. When Xiao Chen heard that this person wanted to exchange it for a red nascent fruit, a thought popped up in his head. His expression did not change as he searched through his universe ring. After a while, he found what he was looking for in a corner. Xiao Chen felt joy in his heart. Since he found this on the outskirts of Seven Horn Mountain, he had never used it. He had almost forgotten about it. He had not expected that it would be useful here. I can offer you 80 spirit stones. Will that do for purchasing this item? A person came forward and asked eagerly. 80 spirit stones to purchase a damaged Wadung spiritual wood was a very high price already. However, that Baikan Peak disciple shook his head and said, "No way, I urgently need the red nascent fruit for my practice. The red nascent fruit on Jade Maiden Peak is not mature yet. So I can only try my luck here. If there are none, then I will be using this Wadung spiritual wood for myself." Thinking about it, he was a Baikan Peak core disciple, he should not be lacking in spirit stones. The remunerations of a core disciple were much higher than a regular inner disciple. Adding in the missions they completed, they should have enough spirit stones. That person felt unresigned, but he simply shook his head and left. The surrounding people all slowly dispersed as well. Although a spirit herb like the red nascent fruit was not a rare item, it took decades to mature. One had to depend on luck in order to obtain one of them. Seeing the crowd to slowly disperse, the Baikan Peak core disciple who had set up the stall revealed a look of disappointment. He got up and prepared to pack up the stall and leave. Xiao Chen hurriedly went over and said, "Hang on, I have a red nascent fruit. I wonder if we can make the trade." When the Baikan Peak disciple heard this, he was happy. He said, "If it is a mature red nascent fruit, I am willing to add some spirit stones to the deal. If it is not matured, you have to add in some spirit stones." When Xiao Chen heard this, he smiled. He took out the red nascent fruit from the universe ring and handed it over. The red fruit had a strong fragrance, a dense spiritual energy that assaulted the nose. Its glass-like surface seemed to have a fiery light underneath it. A matured red nascent fruit. It's really a matured red nascent fruit. That person had an extremely excited expression. "I am Fang Ning. Thank you for the red nascent fruit. I will give you another 10 inferior grade spirit stones." Fang Ning was incredibly joyful. He had been stuck at peak martial grand master for a long time already. This was because he was unable to make a breakthrough in his fire attribute cultivation technique. Now that he obtained the red nascent fruit, he had hopes of advancing to martial saint. Xiao Chen had not expected to be able to obtain 10 inferior grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen properly put away the spirit stones and the Wadung spiritual wood that Fang Ning gave him. He also revealed a joyful expression on his face. Xiao Chen had been looking for this type of spiritual wood. However, he would always end up with nothing definite. This simply proved that spiritual wood was the most effective for life bestowal spells. Not even the spiritual energy-filled beast horns could compare to them. After obtaining the red nascent fruit, Fang Ning immediately packed up the stall and left. He was in a rush to leave the market. Xiao Chen stopped him and said, "Brother Fang, can you tell me where you found this Wadung tree?" Fang Ning stopped and shook his head. He said sincerely, "Brother, it is best you do not know. That place is filled with danger. I went there with my master and the tree already became a spirit. It is very hard to deal with. After Fang Ning finished, he left without looking back. Regardless of how Xiao Chen called out to him, he did not stop. Xiao Chen felt slightly disappointed. He took a look at the sky, it was now a blazing red in the west. The sunset glow dyed the entire sky red, it was already dusk. It was still early, so Xiao Chen decided to continue checking out the shops set up by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, to see if there were anything good. About 200 meters behind Xiao Chen, there was a figure looking at him with a sinister gaze. This person was the one who had wanted the silver-horned tiger's horn earlier, causing me to not be able to complete Master's mission. I am curious to see what kind of background you have. How dare you snatch away the thing I want? Xiao Chen felt the gaze, so he extended out his spiritual sense. When he saw the appearance of the person following him, he smiled and continued walking forward, ignoring him. There were very few people in the official shops. It was a far cry was compared to the bustling free market. Xiao Chen took a quick look, but he was not very interested. The things sold here were all very expensive. They stocked things like herbs, medicinal pills, martial techniques, or cultivation techniques. Others might be interested in them, but they held no attraction for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had the battle sage origin. He could imitate any martial technique under the sun. If it was not some rare martial technique, he would not be interested. As far as medicinal pills and herbs go, he would only need them when he underwent secluded cultivation, but now was not a time. He only purchased a few good quality detoxification pills in case he needed it. Aside from that, he did not buy anything else. He left disappointedly. It was going to be daylight soon. Xiao Chen intended to find a desolate place to stay the night. It was only for one night, he did not mind it too much. When he was about to leave the market, a figure rushed at him quickly, intending to stop him before he left the market. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and locked onto the figure with his spiritual sense. A huge black hand appeared from nowhere and it clenched into a fist, catching that person firmly. Xiao Chen waved his hands casually and that person was tossed up in the air. He flew up in a large arc and landed on the ground with a bang. The huge black hand descended from the sky and clenched itself into a fist. It attacked him continuously, causing that person to vomit blood and faint before it stopped. From the start to the end, Xiao Chen had not turned around. He withdrew his hand and quickly left. Just a wretched tramp, yet he dares to hold him up. How reckless. In the heaven viewing platform, under a tall tree that seemed to be holding the sky up, Xiao Chen looked up at the luxuriant leaves. He revealed a satisfied expression. He would be spending the night here. He pushed his feet off the ground and leapt onto a branch. He maneuvered his body into a comfortable position and laid down. Xiao Chen took out a carving knife and a beast horn from a saber-toothed tiger, and then he prepared to start carving. Xiao Chen had no idea what a saber-toothed tiger looked like, as he had never seen one before. So he could not carve that for the life bestowal spell. If he used it to carve the Golden Lion King, the material was not right. Furthermore, the size of the Golden Lion King was too large. If he forcibly used the tooth for carving the Golden Lion King, it could only make a flawed Golden Lion King. It would not be worth it. Thinking about it, Xiao Chen measured the size of the beast horn. Finally, he decided to carve 5 rank 5 ice apes. Although the rank of the ice ape was not high, it was easier to control and the amount of essence exhausted was less too. The ice ape only had the strength of a martial saint. However, when they came in large numbers, their combat prowess was significant. After he made up his mind, he no longer hesitated. He leaned on the tree trunk and started carving. Shua, shua. Xiao Chen infused essence into the carving knife. Shavings continuously fell off the white beast horn. He recalled the appearance of the ice ape as his hand moved all over the beast horn smoothly. Xiao Chen's carving skill had already reached near perfection. After a while, a small, exquisite, and realistic ice ape sculpture appeared in his hands. There was a gentle smile on his face as he placed the sculpture into his universe ring. After that, he continued carving. By the time he completed carving the 5 sculptures, it was already night. Darkness had already completely covered the sky. Xiao Chen took out the Wudong spiritual wood and inspected it carefully before he gingerly put it away. This was something that could be only found but not sought. Xiao Chen did not want to waste it, it might be useful in future. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged and entered into a state of cultivation. The purple thunder divine incantation circulated slowly in his body. The surrounding dense spiritual energy poured inside him. The density of the spiritual energy in Lingyun mountain range was really alluring, Xiao Chen sighed to himself. No wonder one could not bear to leave. Cultivating here was equivalent to cultivating below the mountain for 3 years. The spiritual energy circulated a great cycle in his body. Finally, they poured into an area in his dantian where his martial spirit lay. Within that strange space, it fell like rain into the gushing river. When he was a martial disciple, the origin of his essence was a few white clouds. When he became a martial master, it became a clear pool of water. Now that he was a martial grand master, it had turned into a gushing river. Every time he advanced by a cultivation realm, the dense spiritual energy would increase by several folds. It was extremely horrifying. Xiao Chen felt astonishment and joy every time. Within the martial grand master realm, there was no one who could compete with him in regard to the amount of essence. Furthermore, the purity of his essence was much higher than regular cultivators, it was much stronger. Such a good thing was definitely a thing to rejoice about. However, even if Xiao Chen were to try to get to the bottom of it, he still would not know what was the cause of this. The only thing he could be sure of was that it was not a result of cultivating the purple thunder divine incantation, that was only a cultivation technique. According to the Compendium of Cultivation, such a phenomena would not occur. If one really had to seek the reason, they would have to start their search from the azure dragon swimming in the river. However, the inheritance of the Shao clan had been broken off a long time ago. There was no way to obtain any information from that end. Maybe Feng Feishui, who is in the imperial capital, would understand why. However, Xiao Chen did not intend to go there for now. Since he could not figure it out, he could not be bothered to keep thinking about it. Xiao Chen reorganized his thoughts and entered into a state of cultivation once again. When the first rays of the morning sun peered through the leaves and struck Xiao Chen's face, he immediately opened his eyes. He took in a long deep breath. Cultivating for the whole night had raised his mental state back to its peak. The medicinal energies of the blood replenishing pill had completely permeated through his body. The injuries he had sustained the previous day had healed completely. His physical body had returned to its peak state as well. Hu Kai. Suddenly, the wooden token at Xiao Chen's waist started to vibrate non-stop. It directly flew out with a wang sound. Xiao Chen understood what it meant. The Hall of Contributions people were giving him a prompt. It was time to go. Bang! Just as Xiao Chen was about to land, a petite figure jumped down from the top of the big tree. That person stretched and looked back at Xiao Chen, giving him a smile. After that, that person left very quickly. Xiao Chen had not expected that there would be someone cheap like him that would spend the night on the same tree. He scolded himself for being too careless. If that person had bad intentions, he could have been in danger last night. There was no time to overthink, the wooden token had already flown far away. If Xiao Chen did not catch up to it, he would likely be late. He leapt high into the air and soared away like a flood dragon. The wooden token flew very fast, but it was also quite stable. As Xiao Chen chased it, he inadvertently realized the wooden token was not headed for the Hall of Contributions. Finally, after some time, it landed in an unknown courtyard. Xiao Chen walked in filled with doubts. He discovered there were already close to 10 people. The girl he saw at the towering tree earlier was also present. When she saw Xiao Chen had arrived as well, she revealed a somewhat astonished expression. Xiao Chen made a quick head count. Including him, there were a total of 10 people. Each one of them had a cultivation of at least medial grade martial grand master. The girl he saw had the highest cultivation, peak superior grade martial grand master. Advancing from martial grand master to martial saint was a threshold. The earlier one advanced, the more likely one's achievement would be higher in the future. As such, the Heaven Saber Pavilion had a rule. If one could not advance to martial saint before the age of 25, their status as an inner disciple would be eliminated. Aside from Xiao Chen, the remaining people all knew each other. They gathered together and chatted in soft voices. I wonder if we will survive this time. I nearly died the last time. Indeed, if it were not for the fact that I lack contribution points, I would not risk my life. Recently, I feel my cultivation has reached a bottleneck. I have to get more pills to assist with my cultivation. When Xiao Chen heard this, his complexion changed. Looking at the collars of these people, he discovered there were only 2 gold lines embroidered on them. This was the mark of ordinary inner disciples. These people were not core disciples. However, how did they receive a high-level sect mission? Could I have been cheated? Xiao Chen thought back to his experience on the 2nd floor. The more he thought about it, the more something felt off. Truthfully, he had indeed been cheated. The list of high-level missions the person gave to him on the 2nd floor of the Hall of Contributions was filled with dangerous missions, high-level missions that few wanted to take and were left behind. Everyone had the right to accept the normal high-level missions, but that person did not show them to Xiao Chen. He was not aware of the shenanigans behind the event. Hey, which peak are you from? What's your name? You seem new. I am Mu Xinya from the Gangyu Peak. We met earlier. The girl took the initiative and greeted Xiao Chen just as he was deep in thought. The reason was unknown, but Lu Ruyu and Lu Sufeng did not wear the uniform of Qingyan Peak, not even when Xiao Chen came along. So, he was still wearing his own clothes. Thus, the others were not able to tell which peak Xiao Chen came from. Xiao Chen recollected his thought and carefully observed the girl in front of him. This girl was about 16 or 17 years old. She appeared to be above average in appearance. There was a smile filling her face and a pair of Yuanyang sabers hanging at her waist. TL note: Yuanyang sabers are a pair of identical sabers. Yuanyang is another word for yin-yang. She gave off the feeling of the girl next door. She seemed very lively. Xiao Chen smiled and said, Qingyan Peak, Yi Chen. Mu Xinya and the 8 other men looked at Xiao Chen in shock. They examined him carefully, and after a while, Mu Xinya said, Didn't you barge your way to the 2nd floor yesterday? Why did you take this mission? They did not show you the other high-level mission. Seeing as Xiao Chen did not understand what was going on, Mu Xinya explained everything carefully. After Xiao Chen heard this, he suddenly understood. No wonder that person left for a long time before bringing him the mission list. Furthermore, the danger level of the missions were all very high. There was not much of a choice either. Given what Mu Xinya and the rest of them explained, when everything was pieced together, it only showed that Xiao Chen had been fooled. Noticing something wrong with Xiao Chen's expression, Mu Xinya advised, Don't think too much. Since you have already accepted the mission, you have to complete it. The penalties for failing a mission are quite harsh. Quote. The others were not core disciples either. They could completely understand Xiao Chen's feelings, and they all gave him some advice. After a while, Xiao Chen became familiar with them. Amongst these people, there was a Baikan Peak disciple called Ma Chen. He had the most experience with this mission. He had done this mission twice already. He did not hold anything back and told the rest of his experiences. The location of the mission is a few hundred meters underground. Our main mission is to protect the ordinary people mining in there. We will meet some strange things frequently underground, so be sure not to be careless. If it is something you cannot handle, immediately retreat and call an elder for help. Preserving your life is more important. Poo poo poo. While Ma Chen was speaking, there was the sound of footsteps coming from the distance. 3 old men wearing black appeared in front of everyone. There were 2 golden crisscrossing sabers embroidered on their collars. That was the mark of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Supreme Elders. The Supreme Elder was a position revered in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. They had the rights to issue sect missions directly. The auras of the three of them were deep and unmeasurable. Their auras were boundless and majestic like a large ocean. Xiao Chen estimated the three of them were at least martial kings. Especially the old man in the middle, the impression he gave was even deeper. His face is filled with wrinkles, like dense dark clouds covering the sky. A cold light twinkled in his eyes occasionally. It looked very startling. The old man looked at the group and frowned. He looked clearly displeased as he said, "The numbers become fewer and fewer. There is even an inferior grade martial Grand Master. The Hall of Contributions suppressed our mission too heavily." The inferior grade martial Grand Master mentioned was obviously Xiao Chen. Although Xiao Chen was not happy about it, he did not dare lose his temper. He kept silent, not saying anything. "Never mind, we will just make do with what we have. There has been nothing major recently anyway, it's been pretty calm. 10 people should be enough," one of them from the side commented. The old man in the middle nodded. "I shall tell you about this mission in detail. I will keep it simple, so don't complain. The mission is simple, all you have to do is patrol the underground. Protection refers to surveillance. The people mining in the Spirit Stone mine are ordinary people. The mission will be completed after a month." That was simple, it was as good as not saying anything at all, Xiao Chen complained in his heart. After the old man spoke, he took out a jade bottle. He said to the group, "Just relax, don't circulate your essence to resist." Su. There was a huge suction force coming from the jade bottle. Xiao Chen heard the old man's words and did not circulate his essence to resist. With a su sound, they were absorbed into the jade bottle. This jade bottle was actually a secret treasure. There was a small realm inside the bottle. It seemed to be inside nothingness. It was completely pitch dark. When one stretched their hand out, one was unable to see their fingers. Xiao Chen could not see the other 9 people. He did not know where they were. Time seemed to come to a stop in the pitch-dark space. Xiao Chen knew this space had a similar effect to his universe ring, but it worked by a different way, so Xiao Chen did not panic. He sat cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. He slowly started to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation to pass this boring time. Bang! It was unknown how much time had passed by the time Xiao Chen felt something solid under him. When he opened his eyes, he discovered he was in a damp stone room. As Xiao Chen stood up, he immediately felt that the surrounding spiritual energy was shockingly dense. It was quite unbelievable. It was as though he could touch the ethereal spiritual energy by stretching his hands out. Is this the spirit mine? Mu Xinya, who was to the side, opened her eyes wide as she looked around curiously. The remaining 8 people and the old men who transported them were nowhere to be seen, only the 2 of them were present. There was a stone table in the room. There were also 2 simple beds and all sorts of things needed for daily living. Could it be that the 2 of them had to live here together for the next month? Xiao Chen felt a headache just thinking about it. On the contrary, Mu Xinya still had a smile on her face. She looked around her surroundings, occasionally fiddling with the things in the stone room. Shua. A stone door in the room opened. A middle-aged man dressed in black walked in and said, "The 2 of you have been placed in a group together. You will live here for 1 month. If there are any problems, you may look for me. Let's go, I will take you to familiarize yourself with the environment. We have to live together." Xiao Chen felt awkward thinking about it. He asked that person, "Senior, is this really fine?" The middle-aged man felt it was strange and said, "What is the problem? You are already gaining the advantage, and you are complaining about it. In this place, everyone is grouped into pairs. If you wish to swap, I can do that immediately. There's no need. There's no need." Xiao Chen quickly gestured with his hands as he spoke. If he had to stay with another man, it would be even more unbearable. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Don't call me senior, I am not that old. Addressing me as Martial Uncle Yi or Yi Wen will do. Come, let's go quickly." "That's right, wait for a while. I nearly forgot. Hold this first. The middle-aged man handed the both of them a map made out of beast skin. Xiao Chen received it and took a look. He discovered it was a map of tunnels that looked like a maze. The winding passages were dazzling. The map seemed to have mentioned there were 8 layers, then he also found the scale of the map. Just this layer of tunnels spanned more than a few thousand square meters. It was astonishing. Xiao Chen found his location on the map. He discovered it was a dot that glowed faintly. He did not know the purpose of it. Yi Wen explained, the glowing dot corresponds with the tokens hanging on your waists. As long as you don't lose your tokens, you don't have to worry about getting lost. Aside from your rest time, if your tokens do not move, we will take it to mean you encounter danger. Someone will immediately come to support you. This probably means that they will be supervised here. With this map, someone will be completely monitoring their movements. Xiao Chen thought to himself quietly. Yi Wen continued to point out some locations on the map. He pointed out the location of headquarters in the mines, then he also told them the black lines were dead ends, and they could not cross them. After a long explanation, the two of them had a rough understanding of this mine. They were no longer as ignorant as they were before, but they did not know everything either. After Yi Wen told the two of them how to use the door, he brought the both of them out to familiarize themselves with the mines. Not long after, they saw a group of ordinary people that were completely black in the dark tunnels. It was unknown how long they had not showered. These people were using pickaxes and digging vigorously in the wide tunnels. Their expressions seemed numb, there was no anger on their faces. A mission to mine the spirit stones was arduous and would be a massive undertaking. If they used the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples for mining, it would not be very realistic. These people were sent here after they signed a life and death contract with the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. TL note. Life and death contract likely is an indemnity form saying the Heavenly Saber Pavilion is not responsible for their deaths. They told them in advance this would be very arduous and dangerous. However, because the rewards were high, these people had the mindset of striking it rich after working here for 5 years.